Hi, everyone. I am Danielle, 28 years old, working as a marketing coordinator here in Austin, Texas. Growing up, I always believed family came first. My parents, Robert and Linda, raised me and my younger sister, Madison, with so much love and trust that I never questioned their decisions. We were the picture-perfect middle-class family from Houston. Madison, who is 24, always dreamed of becoming a stock trader, and honestly, I admired her ambition. But one phone call last March changed everything I thought I knew about the people I trusted most in this world. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you have ever trusted your family completely with your most important decisions, please hit that like button. And do not forget to subscribe, because what I'm about to share will show you how blind trust can lead to the biggest betrayal imaginable. Now let me tell you about the day my perfect family shattered. I need to start by explaining how we got here, because context matters. I was born and raised in Houston, then moved to Austin right after college to pursue my career in marketing. My father, Robert, is 55, a retired construction engineer who worked his entire life to provide for us. My mother, Linda, 53, spent 20 years as an elementary school teacher before retiring early to focus on family. They taught both Madison and me to be independent and self-sufficient from a young age. The house and car that became central to this nightmare were everything to me. I purchased my 3-bedroom home in East Austin back in 2019 for $450,000. Every single payment came from my own savings after 6 years of working 12-hour days and weekend overtime. The house represented my independence, my success, and my future. My 2021 Toyota Camry, worth $35,000, was another symbol of my hard work and financial responsibility. My parents were incredibly proud of what I had accomplished. They would often brag to their friends about how their eldest daughter had made it on her own in Austin. I remember my father saying during Christmas dinner last year that I was proof that their parenting had worked. Madison was still finding her path, having just graduated with an economics degree and starting to explore the world of finance through internships and online trading courses. Our family dynamic was beautiful, or so I thought. We would meet every other weekend either in Austin or Houston to catch up and share our dreams. I was planning to get engaged to my boyfriend Tyler, a 30-year-old architect who had been part of our family gatherings for 2 years. Madison would talk endlessly about her passion for stock trading and her frustration with not having enough capital to make significant investments. She would study market trends for hours and talk about all the opportunities she was missing because she lacked funds. But in March, something felt different. I received a call from my bank regarding what they called changes in property ownership documentation. The representative seemed confused and kept apologizing for what they assumed was a system error. When I asked for clarification, they mentioned my property had been flagged for ownership transfer review. I brushed it off as a technical glitch, but something in my gut felt wrong. Around the same time, Madison started talking differently about investments. Instead of her usual complaints about lack of capital, she began mentioning a big opportunity that was coming up. She would get this excited, almost manic energy when discussing certain stocks, particularly meme stocks like GameStop and AMC. She claimed she had inside information about upcoming price movements and kept saying this was her chance to become financially independent. My parents, who usually loved discussing finances and future plans, suddenly became evasive whenever money topics came up. When I asked about their retirement plans, or mentioned wanting to help them with any expenses, they would quickly change the subject. Robert started avoiding eye contact during these conversations, and Linda would nervously redirect our talks to lighter topics like neighborhood gossip or family recipes. The most unsettling change was how they started asking detailed questions about my work schedule, my travel plans, and particularly about when I would be out of town for business trips. At the time, I thought they were just being caring parents who wanted to know about my busy life. Looking back, I realized they were gathering information for something much more sinister. By April, my instincts were screaming that something was seriously wrong. I decided to take control and investigate what was happening with my assets. The first step was checking my vehicle registration and insurance documentation. When I pulled up my insurance account online, I noticed a signature on a recent document that looked like mine, but felt off somehow. The curves were too sharp and the letter spacing was unnatural. This discovery prompted me to contact the Department of Motor Vehicles directly. After being transferred between 3 different representatives, I finally spoke with someone who could access my complete vehicle history. What she told me made my blood run cold. According to their records, my Toyota Camry had been officially gifted to Madison Campbell 2 months earlier. The transaction showed a voluntary transfer with my signature, authorizing the change of ownership. I immediately called my parents, my hands shaking, as I dialed their number. When Robert answered, I could barely control the trembling in my voice as I asked him to explain how my car ended up in Madison's name. His initial response was complete denial. He claimed there must be some mistake in the system and that they had no knowledge of any ownership transfer. But I could hear the hesitation in his voice, the way he paused too long before answering. When I pressed harder, demanding they check with Madison immediately, the story began to change. Linda took the phone and admitted they had temporarily borrowed my car to help Madison with her new internship. She explained that Madison needed reliable transportation to meet with potential clients and attend financial seminars across Houston. They promised it was just a temporary arrangement and that they would transfer the ownership back to me immediately. But I was not satisfied with this explanation. Why would a temporary borrowing require a complete ownership transfer? Why had no one asked for my permission or even informed me about this decision? The trust I had built with my parents over 28 years was cracking, and I could feel something much worse lurking beneath the surface of their explanations. A week later, my worst fears were confirmed. I received an official letter from the county tax office regarding a property transfer notification. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the envelope. The document stated that my house deed had been transferred to Madison Campbell 6 weeks earlier, and I was being notified as part of the standard property transfer process. I drove straight to the county clerk office, my mind racing with disbelief and growing anger. The clerk was helpful, but clearly uncomfortable, as she pulled up my property records on her computer screen. Right there in black and white was the evidence of my greatest nightmare. The deed to my house, my most valuable possession and symbol of independence, had been legally transferred to my younger sister. But the most shocking discovery was still to come. When I requested copies of all documents related to the transfer, I found a signature that looked remarkably like mine, but was clearly forged. The notarization had been completed in Houston on a day when I was in Austin, attending a 3-day marketing conference for my job. I had hotel receipts and conference attendance records proving I was 3 hours away when this supposed signing took place. Standing in that government office, staring at the fraudulent documents, I realized this was not a family misunderstanding or a temporary borrowing gone wrong. This was deliberate, premeditated fraud committed by the people I trusted most in the world. My own family had stolen my house and car, forged my signature, and committed multiple felonies to do it. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I drove straight to Houston that afternoon, my mind cycling between rage, disbelief, and heartbreak. When I arrived at my childhood home, I found my parents and Madison sitting around the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. They looked up guiltily when I walked in unannounced, and I could see Madison quickly shuffling some documents into a folder. I placed the county clerk documents on the table and asked for an explanation. This time there was no denial, no claims of mistakes or temporary arrangements. Robert looked defeated as he admitted they had orchestrated the entire plan. Madison, however, seemed almost proud as she began explaining what they had done and why they believed it was justified. According to Madison, she had discovered what she called a guaranteed investment opportunity in meme stocks. She had been following social media forums and claimed to have inside information about upcoming price surges in GameStop and AMC Entertainment. But to make the kind of money that would set our family up for life, she needed exactly $800,000 in capital. The math was simple in their minds. My house was worth approximately $485,000 in the current market, and my car could be sold for another $35,000. Combined with my parents' retirement savings of $315,000, they would have enough to fund Madison's investment strategy. She promised to share the profits equally among the family, claiming we would all be millionaires within a year. But the reality was much darker than their optimistic projections. Madison revealed that she had already invested the money 3 months earlier and had lost 60% of the portfolio during the market crash. Instead of the promised millions, she now had barely $320,000 left from the original $800,000. My house and car were gone, my parents' retirement was decimated, and there were no profits to share. The fraud scheme they had executed was sophisticated and planned months in advance. Robert had a friend named Jim who worked as a notary public and had agreed to falsify the notarization documents for a small fee. Linda had spent weeks practicing my signature using old birthday cards and holiday letters I had sent over the years. Madison had researched legal loopholes and property transfer requirements to ensure their fraud would appear legitimate to government officials. When I asked how they could justify stealing from their own daughter, their responses revealed a family dynamic I had been blind to my entire life. Madison accused me of being selfish for not supporting the family's financial goals. She claimed that as the successful daughter, I had a responsibility to help my struggling sister achieve her dreams. My parents supported this twisted logic, suggesting that Madison had more potential to create wealth for the entire family. Robert actually said that my financial independence had made me arrogant, and that this experience would teach me the importance of family over individual success. Linda added that they had always seen my assets as family resources that should be shared when opportunities arose. Their complete lack of remorse or understanding of the severity of their crimes was almost more shocking than the fraud itself. Tyler, my boyfriend, had driven down from Austin when I called him in tears from my parents' driveway. He listened to the entire story with growing anger and immediately advised me to contact a lawyer and file criminal charges. His support gave me the strength to make the decision that would change everything. I was going to fight back, even if it meant destroying what remained of my family relationships. I hired Sarah Martinez, an attorney specializing in real estate fraud and family financial crimes. She reviewed all the documentation I had gathered and confirmed that my family had committed multiple felonies, including identity theft, document fraud, and elder financial abuse against themselves. The evidence was overwhelming, and she was confident we could not only recover my property, but also secure significant damages for the emotional trauma and financial harm they had caused. The legal preparation phase revealed even more devastating betrayals. During the investigation, we discovered that my parents had also forged my signature to open 3 credit lines, in my name accumulating an additional $47,000 in debt that I knew nothing about. They had used these credit lines to cover their living expenses after depleting their savings for Madison's failed investments. The legal process consumed 8 months of my life, but it ultimately delivered the justice I desperately needed. The case involved multiple hearings, expert testimony, and a complete forensic analysis of all the fraudulent documents. A handwriting expert conclusively proved that my signatures had been forged, and digital records confirmed I was in Austin during the supposed notarization in Houston. Jim, my father's notary friend, became the weakest link in their conspiracy. When faced with criminal charges and the possibility of losing his professional license, he admitted to the fraud and testified against my family in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony provided the final piece of evidence needed to prove premeditation and deliberate intent to commit fraud. Madison's trading records became a key part of the case, showing a pattern of reckless gambling rather than informed investment decisions. She had ignored basic risk management principles and had put the entire $800,000 into highly volatile meme stocks without any diversification or stop-loss strategies. The judge noted that her behavior demonstrated a complete disregard for the family's financial security. When my parents were forced to testify under oath, they finally admitted the full scope of their wrongdoing. Robert broke down on the witness stand as he acknowledged that they had violated my trust and committed serious crimes against their own daughter. Linda appeared defiant until the very end, still insisting that they had acted in the family's best interests. The judge ruled decisively in my favor, ordering full restitution, plus punitive damages and legal fees. The total judgment was $675,000, which included compensation for my property, the fraudulent credit accounts, and additional damages for the emotional trauma I had suffered. The judge specifically noted that financial fraud between family members was particularly egregious because it violated the most basic bonds of trust. The immediate consequences for my family were severe and irreversible. My parents were forced to sell their own home to pay the judgment, and they lost their retirement security entirely. Madison had to liquidate her remaining stock holdings and move back in with our parents, who could only afford a small apartment after selling their house. Extended family members were divided, with some supporting my decision to pursue legal action, while others believed I had gone too far in destroying the family. But the most difficult part of this entire experience was the emotional healing process. Initially, I felt overwhelming guilt about the financial devastation I had caused my family through the lawsuit. I questioned whether I should have just accepted the loss and tried to rebuild my life without involving the courts. The isolation was crushing as most family gatherings were canceled and holiday traditions disappeared. Therapy became essential for processing the betrayal trauma and rebuilding my sense of self-worth. Through counseling, I learned to recognize the difference between healthy family support and financial abuse. I joined a support group for victims of family financial crimes and discovered that my experience was unfortunately common. These connections with other survivors helped me understand that protecting myself legally was not only justified, but necessary. My career actually flourished during this difficult period, perhaps, because I channeled my energy into areas where I had control. I received a promotion to senior marketing manager and was able to rebuild my financial security relatively quickly. Tyler remained supportive throughout the entire ordeal, and our relationship grew stronger as we navigated this crisis together. About a year after the court case concluded, Madison reached out to me with a genuine apology. She admitted that her obsession with quick wealth had blinded her to the harm she was causing, and acknowledged that she had manipulated our parents into participating in the fraud. While I appreciated her honesty, I maintained firm boundaries about any future financial discussions or family investments. My father's health scare 6 months later served as a wake-up call for everyone about the importance of family relationships. Robert suffered a mild heart attack that forced him to confront the stress and guilt he had been carrying since the trial. This event led to a slow, cautious rebuilding of some family connections, though they remained limited and carefully structured. The most important lesson I learned from this devastating experience was the difference between blind trust and healthy relationships. Supporting family members does not mean sacrificing your own financial security or enabling destructive behavior. Love and trust must be balanced with personal boundaries and legal protections, especially when significant assets are involved. I also realized that my house and car represented more than just financial investments. They were symbols of my independence, my hard work, and my right to exist as my own person, rather than simply as someone's daughter or sister. Fighting for them in court meant fighting for my fundamental right to self-determination and financial autonomy. Looking back now, I understand that sometimes protecting yourself requires disappointing people you love. The guilt and family conflict were painful, but they were necessary consequences of refusing to be a victim. You cannot pour from an empty cup and you cannot build healthy relationships on a foundation of financial abuse and deception. Today, I live in a beautiful new house that I purchased entirely with my own money and legal protections that prevent anyone else from accessing my assets without explicit written consent. The peace of mind that comes from these boundaries is worth more than any family harmony built on lies and exploitation. My relationship with Tyler has evolved into an engagement built on mutual respect and financial transparency. We have created a partnership where both people maintain individual autonomy while supporting each other's goals and dreams. This experience taught me to value relationships that enhance rather than diminish my independence and security. The legal victory was important, but the emotional growth was transformative. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong, to investigate rather than ignore red flags, and to take decisive action when my fundamental rights are violated. These skills have made me a stronger person in all areas of my life. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had simply accepted the theft and tried to move forward without legal action. Would my family have learned from their mistakes, or would they have continued to view me as a resource to exploit when convenient? The court case sent a clear message that financial crimes have serious consequences, even within families. The most powerful lesson from this experience is that forgiveness and accountability are not mutually exclusive. I have forgiven my family for their betrayal while maintaining boundaries that protect me from future harm. Love does not require you to enable destructive behavior or sacrifice your own well-being for others' mistakes. I share this story not for sympathy, but to encourage others who might be facing similar betrayals within their own families. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, document everything, and do not hesitate to seek legal protection when necessary. Your financial security and personal autonomy are not negotiable, regardless of who is threatening them. The road to recovery was long and painful, but it led to a life built on honesty, respect, and genuine mutual support, rather than exploitation and false promises. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in destructive patterns, even when that refusal causes temporary pain for people you care about. What would you do if you discovered your family had stolen your most valuable possessions to fund a risky investment scheme? Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and protecting your own financial security? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, because these conversations help all of us learn and grow from difficult situations. Please give this video a like if my story resonated with you, or if you believe in standing up for your rights, even when it is difficult. Subscribe to hear more real stories about overcoming betrayal and building stronger boundaries. And share this video with anyone who might need encouragement to protect themselves from financial abuse. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting others who have faced similar challenges. Remember that you deserve relationships built on respect and honesty, and you have the right to protect what you have worked so hard to build. May you find the courage to trust your instincts and the strength to take action when your boundaries are violated.